Hello everyone, I'm your hostess with the mostest 8-second gaming. In today's video, we're going to be talking about 5 tips for you to absolutely dominate this split. Because along with the split does come some rank resets, and people might want to get back to their rank or even hit a new peak one. So we're going to be breaking these down. By the end of this video, you will understand how to absolutely kill it out there. But if you guys are here, it's very clear that you are looking to get better at Apex, and if that's the case, then you need to check out the GameLeap website right now. Over there, we have top level coaches creating the best, most highly informative guides that are all site exclusive, so you will not find them anywhere else. We have hundreds of guides on there already, with more on the way every single week. We got legend guides, gun guides, VOD reviews, movement guides, mechanical guides, positioning stuff, everything that you can imagine. And there's no better time than right now, because to celebrate the new split, we are actually having a sale. So if you use code POG50, that's POG50, you will get a nice discount. So click the link in the description, use that code, and start to improve today. But okay, let's jump into the tips now. To start off with tip number 1, that is to pick a proper drop spot. Now when it comes to drop spots, Stormpoint does have a few really good options, but it also has a ton of bad options. There are a few spots on Stormpoints where it does seem a little bit enticing, but it's actually just a trap and it can end your game and lose you RP. Now there are 3 drop spots that I do recommend. One is more a little bit of a safer loot spot, then you get a good rotation. One is more based off third party and getting some early kills off that, and one is just straight up you land and you want to fight somebody. So first off, the rotation one is going to be North Pad. There's a ton of loot there, but it's not super spread out. Your team can very efficiently loot it, and then there's a lot of really good options with tridents there and even the IMC Armory. You have a ton of options on where you want to go and what you want to do with your game there. But if you're looking to third party right off the bat, then my suggestion is to drop Thunderwatch. Now Thunderwatch does have a fairly decent amount of loot there, but the really good thing about it is its proximity to Stormcatcher. A lot of people go Stormcatcher, and there's not a lot of loot in Stormcatcher, so people are going to be fighting with scraps, and if you time it perfectly, you're still going to be able to pick up a decent amount of kills and be good for the rest of the game. But if you are a very scrappy player, you want to land, you want to fight, you want to show everybody that you're better than them off drop, then you need to go to Mills. Mills actually does have a pretty decent amount of loot, so even if another team or even 2 to 3 teams drop there, you still will be able to have a decent chance of getting some good items. But it also has really good map positioning, so even after your fight, if it gets drawn out a little bit, you typically won't have to worry about ring unless it pulls super far away to like lightning rod or something. But those are the drop spots that I recommend, so let's move into tip number 2, and that is to avoid the death spots. Now every map has these areas where you just kind of want to avoid them because they're the melting pot. This is where every team goes to rotate through when they're on their rotations, and if you get into a fight or just time it wrong, then you're going to be caught there. You're more than likely going to die, because even if you do shoot a bullet, it's just going to bring more and more teams there, so it's better to just straight up avoid these spots altogether. Now there are 2 on Stormpoint. The first is the Greater Cascades area. Now this does include the Cascades POI, but it also stretches to the Checkpoint Choke and also past Command Center to Stormcatcher. Anything within that area is all kind of relatively the same. Teams will be rotating through it. If you shoot one bullet, they're all going to be rushing towards you, and Cascades is just a nightmare to fight in. But the second one is Antenna. Antenna is one of those spots that has a ton of people rotating through it because there's not a whole lot of options other than going through that. Think about it, you got Gale Station, Fish Farms, Shipfall, Launchpad, everything is right there, and there's no other real options to go through other than Antenna, so if you catch the perfect storm, there's gonna be a bunch of teams there and it's going to be a bad time. So unless you absolutely have to in your games, avoid the Greater Cascades area and Antenna altogether, or you're just gonna be hemorrhaging RP and not able to climb. Moving into tip number 3 though, this is to abuse the PvE side of Apex. On Stormpoint, there are the Spiders and Prowler's Nests, and these are insanely useful for 3 reasons. Number 1 is these drop smart loot when killed. What smart loot is the game knows exactly what attachments you have for the guns that you're running, and it judges what you need the most based off that. So if you have a 301 with no barrel stabilizer, it will more than likely drop a barrel stabilizer for you. Now number 2 is that you level up your Evo armor off of these. Now it isn't a bunch, but even the smallest little bits of Evo armor can help you out in games, especially if you're getting very unlucky and you're only on white. If you're able to do a bunch of spiders, maybe even a couple prowlers, and hey, even shoot a flyer here and there, you will be able to level up your Evo armor to blue and be a lot better off in some fights. And last but not least, you do get crafting materials when you finish clearing a nest. And crafting materials are always nice to have. You can never have enough shield batteries. Now the next thing is the IMC armory bunkers, and these did get a little bit of a nerf so they don't drop as much good loot. They still do drop a ton of really good loot though, and a ton of ammo if you're really short on it, but they're kind of a high risk, high reward type deal. Teams love to wait for another person to start these IMC bunkers, then they'll wait on top of it, they'll arc star you, they'll horizon alt you, whatever they have to do to kill you, and then they'll just take the gear that you got. So if you're going to do these, be sure that you know exactly how to fight your way out of them. Jumping into tip number 4 though, this is to abuse tridents. You guys have to remember that Stormpoint was designed with competitive in mind, and for that reason it is a lot bigger than the other maps we have. Now don't get me wrong, I do enjoy the size of Stormpoint, but there is one downside to the size of this map, and that is some rotations can be very rough. Especially if you're maybe even solo queuing and don't have a Valkyrie on your team. Sometimes without the Valk, you just kind of get screwed out of a rotation. But this is where the tridents come in handy, and I don't see enough lower elo players using these tridents. These get you from point A to point B extremely quickly, and if you're actually a decent driver with them, you will be able to kind of maneuver around people and not take as much damage on your rotation. And hey, maybe you have a Gibraltar so you can just throw your bubble on top of it and not have to worry about anything. But even then, it is worth the risk of having a team shoot at you while you're in the trident, because you do take reduced damage and you can just boost away if need be. And then you get to your destination a lot faster, you're able to set up, and at the end of the game, if worse comes to worse, you have the trident that you can use as some mobile cover. I have actually won a handful of games where the only cover that we had in endgame was a trident. So if you're one of the people that never uses a trident, start learning how to do it. Hop into a pub game, play around with it a little bit, learn how to drive it, and then take it into your rank games. But now tip number 5 is to take advantage of this split. Now a lot of the community does not like Stormpoint, and for those people I'm talking directly to you for this. Now this is probably the last season where Stormpoint is going to be a rotation for a long time, but it's actually the best ranked map that we have, and one that you need to be abusing in order to learn on. Now like I just said, Stormpoint was designed with competitive in mind. It's a bigger map, it has harsh zone pulls, but that's actually better for you as a player, because when those harsh zone pulls happen, you get better at reading zones, predicting the pulls, and you're going to be able to put your team in a much better position to win. On top of that, with those zone pulls, you get a lot better at rotating and planning out safer rotations so your team doesn't get caught out in the open. On smaller maps like Kings Canyon, which we just had, you don't have to focus as much on your rotation because it isn't as big of a map. You can kind of get away with just kind of lollygagging and not really paying attention. But on Stormpoint, you need to actually plan something out. But that's not all. The size of the map also means that you are more than likely to have an isolated 3v3 if you pay a little bit more attention. And isolated 3v3s are huge for you to grow as a player. This allows you to learn and take better, smarter fights. And both of these skills, the rotation and the fighting, translate into other maps, and you can use them in your entire ranked career. Stormpoint is really the best map to learn on, and we're losing it, so absolutely take advantage of it this split before it goes away. Stop being somebody that doesn't like Stormpoint because of the size of it. If you're the person that can't find anybody, you just don't understand the flow of the map. But once you grow as a player and start to understand it a little bit more, you will have no problem tracking people down. But with all this being said, guys, I really hope you enjoyed this video and learned something new. If you did and you want to stay up to date with the latest and greatest Apex Legends tips, tricks, and news, don't forget to smash that like and subscribe button. Thank you all for watching. Once again, I'm 8 Second Gaming, and I will see you in the next one.